Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Paul Ford. I'm a Director of Business Development and Alliances here, and I am responsible for our relationship with Microsoft. I'm joined by three of my esteemed colleagues here. Tajir Bath, who is responsible and is a solution architect for our SD-WAN solution. Hilco, who is a staff architect for our Horizon solution, and Jeremiah McGee, who is a architect for our AVS, Azure VMware Solution with Microsoft. And we're here today to talk about those three solutions and ask your technical questions. Let's nerd out today. We have a sister session running at Ignite this week, where we're kind of talking about the value prop for you guys as customers and how you guys can leverage the solution. But here we really wanted to get into the zeros and ones and really address any technical questions you guys might have. The group here is ready to triage anything you guys can throw at us, and we're super excited to interact with you guys. Please feel free to use the live Q&A to ask these questions. And we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to set this up quickly to let you know that there's a really strong partnership between Microsoft and VMware. Those of you that have been longtime customers of both of us know that this might not have been an outcome that you would have thought happened like a decade ago, but we're such strong partners now. We have a whole solution portfolio and set across all of our product groups that can allow you guys make that effortless transition to the cloud. We know you guys have large VMware estates, hopefully. We know you guys have Azure estates as well. And what we see our role here in this group here is to help you transition to the cloud at your speed, at your own pace, and make sure that when you do land there and you land safely. And if you want to maintain that hybrid infrastructure, obviously we think VMware is the #1 company in the world to help you do that. So again, quickly to recap, we're talking about three solutions. Azure VMware Solution is the product name. This is actually a Microsoft product, but that allows you guys as customers to run your core VMware compute networking and storage stack on top of Azure. And we can get into that a little bit as well. Horizon. This is our virtual desktop and application products. You guys might have been using it. You might have used it to help survive the pandemic for some of your remote workforce. We're integrated very closely with Azure and Windows Virtual Desktop, so we can dive into those questions as well. And then last but not least, SD-WAN. We see a lot of customers, whether it comes to just remote offices and tying them back to data center, but even now, leveraging SD-WAN products to connect those remote offices and on-prem data centers to Azure to streamline that networking connectivity. So these are the three products we're talking about today. I'm going to open this up to questions. Please don't be shy. We're going to be here for the next 27 minutes and we're at your beck and call. So some questions are streaming in. Hilco, I'm going to start with you on the Horizon and VDI front. A question around how does VDI and Horizon compare to Windows Virtual Desktop? We actually partner with that and enhance one another, but Hilco, I'll let you take the baton on that.
Yeah, so they're basically two completely different beasts. When you look at WVD, we are talking about RDSH, so it's published desktops or published applications. And with VDI, you have a VM just for yourself. So one of the advantages of that is that it's a lot easier to actually scale as you're not sharing any resources with other users. And if you run it on AVS on top of that, you also have dedicated hardware, which you're not sharing with other customers. So that's one advantage. The other big one is that for WVD, I mean, that is Windows only. And with VDI, you can also run Linux as well. So that's just 2 or 3 examples of the differences.
We had another question from Dan Hilco. Are there any provisions for RDS apps in Azure?
I'm not sure what he means with provisions in this case, but yes, we can do. So we've got Horizon Cloud on Azure, and from there we do have RDS published applications and published desktops. Plus on AVS, you can also run RDSH and do the exact same thing.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a question on AVS. Can you talk about, Jeremiah? Can you talk about whether AVS is a VMware product or a Microsoft product?
Yeah, absolutely. So AVS is actually a first-party service that's designed, built, and supported by Microsoft, and it's endorsed by VMware. So we give it our VMware Cloud Verified stamp of approval. It's built on VMware Cloud Foundation, and all of the features and the latest versions of vSphere and HCX, NSXT, vSAN, all of that, is included within the service. So Microsoft first-party endorsed by VMware to bring you that operational consistency and that vSphere environment to mix it with the Azure native cloud.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremiah. One more while I have you.
Yeah.
With Azure VMware Solutions, am I able to access any other Azure services in the same way? I could maybe on-prem or maybe I would with an Azure native workload.
Yeah, absolutely. So the good thing about this being hosted within the Azure cloud is that you are connected to that backbone, that network backbone. So AVS is an extension of the native components and native services of Azure, and it sits within those same subscriptions and regions that you're already taking advantage of. So you can certainly take advantage of those native components and services from your vSphere workloads, and they go right over the ExpressRoute, high speed, low latency. You can handle everything within those subscriptions, within those regions, and take full advantage of that, just like you could on premises. But this just kind of gets you a little bit closer to those services and components.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremiah. Hilko, I have some questions flooding in.
Yeah, I see 5.
Jeremiah, this might flip back to you because there are some AVS nuance here. But Hilko, Katie is asking if we have an on-prem Horizon with app volumes and virtual GPU set up right now, can we set up a pod on Azure with identical desktop pools? And can we load balance between Azure and on-prem resources?
No, so currently Azure VMware Solution does not support GPU. That might come in the future. The other question, or the other part of the question, was app volumes. And for app volumes, the answer is yes, you can. And I see the same question later on, so you can mark that one as answered as well.
Okay.
And then I'll take the next. What is the preferred technology to provide a consistent user experience with VDI? Well, FSLogix is a very good candidate to use, but in my opinion, it doesn't give you the whole solution, because if you just use FSLogix, you haven't configured your initial application settings. So I would highly recommend to combine it with DEM, which is Dynamic Environment Manager. And that would allow you to also either enforce certain settings to let the users take their own backups, or you restore backups, but also get your initial settings in.
Perfect. Again, we got some questions for you, Hilko.
I knew this was going to be mainly Horizon.
This is good. I want to thank the audience for getting interactive with us. Nick, are you able to use connecting platforms like VMware App Volumes with Azure VMware Solution? I'm not sure if that's a Jeremiah or Hilko question.
Which one do you mean?
Are you able to use connecting platforms like App Volumes with AVS?
Yes, App Volumes is fully available on AVS. It's supported and it works really, really well. The only thing that I do need to say there, one of the problems with basically all of the vSphere-based clouds is it's hard to get your app volume synchronized. So we are working on a solution to do that automatically. So for now, you have to do like a manual export and manual import if you have multiple environments. If it's the same environment, it will work, of course.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Tej, I got a question for you. And we'll get back to there's a lot of Horizon questions coming in, team. We'll circle back to that. But as SD-WAN can help accelerate and accentuate your Horizon deployments, especially in Azure, Tej, can you talk about some of the announcements that we made with Microsoft just this week at Ignite and around VMware SD-WAN?
Right. So if you see, we launched today a new solution with a virtual WAN integration, and recently we also did an integration with private edge zones. So the solution that we announced today is where we can now deploy your SD-WAN right inside the virtual WAN VNets. So what that does is, now you have native integration into virtual WAN, and the native integration with all the routing constructs of the WAN. So now customers can just dynamically connect their branch locations directly to a SD-WAN sitting right inside the virtual WAN, and then connect that via the BGP sessions there. So that provides you end-to-end automated connectivity. You no longer have to do any kind of IPsec tunnels and be limited with that, the throughput of IPsec tunnels and the route limitations that comes with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. And what makes this unique to Azure, and what's that good value for all of our Azure customers out there compared to maybe some of the other clouds?
So if you see, our VMware SD-WAN architecture itself is pretty different from most of our competitors, and because of that different architecture or a unique architecture, we have this unique solutions with Microsoft. We have these three components. I can pull up the slide just to easy to talk through that. If you see, we have three different solutions here. You have orchestrator sitting on the top, number one, which is a single pane of glass where you can see all your network. Number two is your SD-WAN edges, which is all everywhere in the branch locations or work from home users or data centers. And you have a third component, which is what is unique about our architecture, which is a cloud hosted multi-tenant gateways, which we host and manage all across the world. And these gateways are located very close to Microsoft network. And in most of these locations, we actually peer directly with Microsoft on these gateways. So what that does is, for users, if they want to access anything in Azure or Microsoft, for SD-WAN is a bookend solution. So when you send traffic from the branch, you need something on the other side to actually, to provide that QoS, provide that link steering and all that, a good source of overlay network. But if you're sending it to Azure or sending it to SaaS, then you don't have anything on the other end. So for us, we have these cloud gateways which sit on that on the other end, and they are sitting right next to Microsoft. So now you have that dynamic, multipath optimization, which is, QoS, link steering, remediation, any kind of issues that happens on MPLS or internet, we can rectify that. And from those gateways, we can hand that traffic over to Microsoft, let's say Microsoft 365, or to Azure Virtual WAN. In this case, you can also reach AVS through a virtual WAN integration, So that's one set of solution, and another set is where we actually working with your zones team, right? So where we are extending Microsoft Azure right into the customer's doorsteps, into their stores or into their factory locations, and connecting that network back into Azure Microsoft Cloud. So we were the launch partners in that. And we have that solution up and running in the market and actually doing a couple of POCs on that. So we have a plethora of different solutions all across different use cases for Azure.
Perfect. Thank you, Tej. A couple questions back on Horizon. Hilko and Jeremiah, maybe this is a tag team. Does AVS support a hybrid VDI model? Can you extend can you extend Horizon from on-prem into Azure?
Yeah, so you definitely can do that. So with Horizon, one of the nice things that we have is that we support multi-cloud. So you could have on-premises, you could have AVS, you could have Google VMware Engine, or even Oracle Cloud, and you can just build your environment across. And that is one of the main benefits that you get with Horizon, or even with VMware currently, that we support multiple clouds.
Perfect. And how do customers, Hilko, provision large numbers of VMs to connect and manage cloud compute costs for VDI?
Okay, so how do we provision? I see that as question number one in there.
Yeah.
One of the nice things that we have with Horizon is instant clones. And what an instant clone is an in-memory fork of a running parent VM. And that means that after we created the initial, doing multiple is really, really quick. So we can actually create one desktop roughly in a second, 1.3, 1.4 seconds. So that is how quick we can actually provision. And managing your costs, well, what you're buying here, so what we are talking about today is Azure VMware Solution. And that actually is a vSphere environment running in the same data center as Azure. And that is what you're currently buying. So you don't have to worry about what your hosts are consuming because you're paying for the host. And the upside of that is that it's dedicated hardware.
Yeah, and another way too, right, Hilco, is if you end up going Azure native, is leveraging Windows 10 Multisession, right? That can also help kind of, and maybe I'll pass to you to get into details, but that also help lessen the cost of some of that Azure compute when you migrate from on-prem, right? So that's another way, and obviously we integrate with that within virtual.
Yes. Yeah. So
stuff.
Yeah. So we can definitely also broker to WVD. And besides that, we have another product, what is not using the Azure VMware solution, and that's called Horizon Cloud on Azure. And that is a desktop as a service solution, and that also supports app volumes, FSLogic, DEM, but that uses WVD in the background or VMs running in native Azure.
Perfect. Hey, Jeremiah, and I can tackle this one with you as well.
Yep.
A question about the licensing when it comes to AVS. So this one probably isn't super technical, so I'll take a swing and then maybe you can supplement. But essentially, remember, this is a Microsoft SKU, and we partner closely with them so you can leverage all of your normal Microsoft Commerce channels to acquire this. You can just provision it in the Azure portal, but it's licensed per node, per host. So it's not down to the VM level. You can get down to hourly billing, but essentially we provision this in kind of node host formats that you can consume. I don't know if you want to add any more detail to that, Jeremiah, as you're involved in day to day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, you nailed it. It's a subscription basis, but also think about it from this perspective. You don't have to bring your licensing, right? So when we talk about, deploying this private cloud instance and you've got ESXi and vCenter and HCX and NSXT and vSAN, you're getting all of that software as part of that subscription fee. You'll get, vSphere. I think we're running 6.7 update 3 across the board right now. And then soon to be running 7, that's on the roadmap. And then, you get HCX Advanced, NSXT, vSAN, all of that stuff, all that licensing is built in. When you add another node, that licensing comes with that. And then, of course, from the Microsoft perspective, your licensing would remain the same. However, you're handling licensing within Azure, that licensing would fall along the same lines. I'd toss it to Hilco if there's any differences on licensing the desktop side of the house, but for the rest of it, it's pretty straightforward.
So one of the nice things here is that when you leverage I think Microsoft calls it the hybrid loyalty program, yep. You do not have the same constraints as you have on the other clouds when it comes to Office 365 and Windows licensing. So you can bring your own licenses with that program.
Yeah, and you get support, more support, right? So if you're still running some legacy Windows servers, 2008, you get those extended support, extended security patches, so that you can have more time to migrate off of those operating systems onto more modern operating systems, whether that's in Azure native or within your AVS deployment.
And Hilco, this should be a quick one for you, but in a hybrid cloud environment, can the VMware control plane, which runs in Azure, control both on-prem VDI instances along with things that are in the public cloud like in Azure from the one control plane?
Yeah, we can, but we do need to make a careful division there. So again, there's 2 products running here. We've got Horizon running on top of Azure VMware Solution, or we have Horizon Cloud. And yes, we can control both, no problem. And in the future, we can even broker to both at the same time. But today, we can only broker to one solution. And that's something that will be coming in the near future, that we can actually broker across. So maybe you'll have some desktops running on-prem, and for that specific user group, you've got a backup solution running in Azure VMware Solution. And for another user group, you have it running on-prem, but you've got a backup running on Horizon Cloud on Azure. That's going to be possible in the future.
And do we have a timeline or roadmap for GPU support, Hilco, for Horizon?
Well, Horizon supports it, no problem. I mean, we do it on-prem, so it's actually up to the cloud providers to actually come with GPU support, and that's in this case up to Microsoft, so I can't say that for you. What I do know is that soon we will get support on VMware Cloud on AWS. That's coming. that's on the public roadmap.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I lost my track here. But we have a question. Crap, what's it here? Is there? And let's go back to SD-WAN. Tej, you kind of highlighted this a little bit earlier, but maybe a little bit more detail here. How we enhance the experience for our joint customers on Microsoft 365, and how we can make that experience better for our customers and users.
Sure. So the way the Microsoft has, I would say, like having 3 clouds, right? So your Azure cloud and M365 and Dynamic 365, right? So we have when the traffic comes in for all these branch locations or data center, wherever the users are, and when they try to access M365, the way it works for us is whenever the traffic hits our edge, we have this integration with Microsoft 365 where we have pull in all the IPs and ports directly into each of the edge in the customer enterprise. And with that, what it happens is when the packet comes in, we instantly identify that this is Microsoft 365 traffic, and this needs to go into a higher QoS queue, right? So that it gets its fair share of bandwidth and gets a higher performance compared to any other traffic that's going through it. For example, Teams, audio or video, it needs to have its own fair share of bandwidth and the QoS. So that's at the branch side, and then when it needs to go out and access those resources sitting in the Microsoft cloud, then traffic goes over our SD-WAN tunnels to the closest cloud gateways, which are sitting right next to Microsoft 365. So now you have, let's say, 1 or 2 broadband links on your branch location. We will send the traffic on the best link that can actually provide that performance to Microsoft 365. So it goes from the edge to a closest cloud gateway, and then we hand it over directly to Microsoft from there, just providing end-to-end, a better performance and quality for the application.
Perfect. Thanks, Tej. Jeremiah, question for you on Azure VMware Solution. If we're moving a VM from VMware on-prem to AVS, what does it take to retain that same IP address? Downtime, VM shutdown is acceptable.
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, we can extend those networks, and you have to have an ExpressRoute, so that's going to be the requirement. But if you have an ExpressRoute set up between your on-premises environment and Azure, and more specifically AVS, then we can use HCX to do that, right? So VMware HCX, you get the advanced licensing included with the service. From there, you can build out a service mesh and set up everything that you need to do. You can extend your networks into the cloud. You can choose to do offline migrations, live migrations, bulk migrations, whatever you need to do to move those workloads from on-prem into AVS. You can schedule them. You can do replicated assisted vMotion. You can do all of these different things. And so there's a ton of different options available to you, but certainly you can keep the same IP addresses, and you can decide, whether you need to have downtime or, limited downtime, or if you want to do it live and move those over, just as you would with any other HCX deployment to any other environment or any other cloud.
Perfect, thank you. Hilko, a question from Bill. Does VMware Workspace 1 being a user's authentication work with a non-persistent Horizon environment? And would you be able to maintain the non-persistent desktop for each user?
I didn't fully understand the question. So Workspace 1 definitely works for non-persistent desktops as well, even for physical machines. But then the last part of that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me pull that back up there. Does Workspace 1 being a user work with users authentication for non-persistent Horizon environment, you answered, and also be able to manage the non-persistent desktop for each user?
So he's talking about non-persistent, but yes, Workspace 1 also works with non-persistent machines.
Okay, perfect. A question, Jeremiah, follow-up. I'm sorry I missed this before I asked the previous one, but if we don't have ExpressRoute, is there another way to make the migration work for AVS?
Yeah, so ExpressRoute is definitely a requirement for HCX. Today, to get connectivity in AVS, you can do VPN, and we recommend that kind of for your dev test environment as you're dipping your toe into the AVS world. But for production, we suggest doing an ExpressRoute, and it is a hard requirement for HCX. So today, you'd have to do that. Even if in the future it is supported to use VPN for that connectivity, you wouldn't be able to do any live migration with HCX. So over VPN, you would still have to have some downtime should that become available in the future.
Perfect. And Chris is asking whether these solutions are on Azure Gov. So I know you can deploy Horizon on Azure Gov if needed. I believe the same is true with SD-WAN. The AVS, remember this is a Microsoft SKU. I know we're targeting that at some point later this year, but you'd have to ask your Microsoft rep the definitive timeline on deploying on Azure Gov, because ultimately, as it's their solution, they own that deployment frame. All right, AVS. Does Azure Hybrid Benefit apply to Windows VMs on Azure VMware Solution, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So, all of those hybrid benefits that you're going to get will apply because those virtual machines are hosted, within the Azure cloud, just happen to be on the VMware platform.
Yeah, so for you folks out there thinking about migrating to Azure, tons of Windows. Yes, AHub obviously works on Azure native, but AVS is included in that, which is a big value add for your skill sets and the things that you guys are working on. So just for the group here and for our customers enjoying this session, we have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any other last minute questions, please, put them in the chat now. I would say another question, Hilko, to you. Will my Horizon desktops incur egress costs for data transfer to M365 components such as OneDrive, Teams, or Exchange Online? Good question.
I don't believe they do, but that's a question for Jeremiah.
Yeah, so they shouldn't. I'll have to follow up on that one, but because everything is connected to the Azure backbone and you're going right over that ExpressRoute, you shouldn't incur any fees. I would have to double check if it's going to cross region. So I'll take note of that, and then we'll figure out a way to communicate that in some manner. But within the region for sure, you're good. I'll just have to double check on the cross region.
Thank you. And if we can flip the slide to the other sessions for VMware here at Ignite this week, but for you guys to check that out as we wind down here. Someone's asking, and I can answer this one, if we're adding Tanzu to the AVS portfolio. Yes, that is on the roadmap. That is a goal of the joint R&D teams between Microsoft and VMware. We don't have a timeline on that immediately, but if this is something that you're super interested in, I recommend you reach out to your VMware Microsoft rep so we can ensure that we surface that to R&D teams to make sure they prioritize that accordingly. So thank you for that question. Let's see. A question actually to you three in general. You might each have a different answer, but what is the best learning resource for the products and some of the new features that may be coming out with each of these products? Maybe each of you can just chime in on a couple seconds here as we wrap up.
Yeah, so from the AVS perspective, Microsoft's done a phenomenal job of kind of putting all that documentation together. They've got some how-to guides and a bunch of information. So all of that stuff, if you go to the Azure VMware Solution page on Microsoft's site, they'll have all of that information there. And then, of course, we have our VMware hands-on labs that you can go through, and this will take you through deployment, and kind of managing, and then HCX and migration as well. We don't have a Horizon one that we've built just yet on the HOL for AVS, but that's coming. But everything for AVS in general, you can get through Microsoft's documentation or through our hands-on labs on the VMware website.
Right, and for SD-WAN, I would recommend everyone to go to sdwan.vmware.com for all our new solutions, any kind of new integrations, and for all the product and SD-WAN documentation.
Yeah, for Horizon, the best place to look would be TechZone, and then especially the reference architecture. So techzone.vmware.com.
Okay, thank you guys. To all of our avid listeners, we appreciate your time. We're winding down here. We hope you have a great Ignite. There's lots of sessions on VMware. You can see a sample of them right here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. I think they have a networking tool for Ignite, but also contact your VMware rep, contact your Microsoft rep. Both companies are super bullish about this partnership. We're excited to move forward. We're excited to take you on this journey to the cloud and hybrid cloud. And we think these are some of the solutions that can help get you there. So thank you again for the time. Have a great week and stay safe out there. Thank you.